Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and we just watched Johnny Depp give his testimony for the first time, breaking his silence over 6 years in the waiting, as Amber Heard has been out there saying her pieces. It was a very heartbreaking, a lot of emotion coming through Johnny. There was some stumbling. There was a lot of just expressing his words, but we did start to get a lot of foundation and groundwork to set the tones for what's going to happen with them when the abuse started. We really got about 3 hours of testimony, about 2 hours or so of Johnny breaking down his career, why he wanted to do this, his career, his movie career, how he met Amber's friends and family, and it really set the tone for what I think we're going to start hearing tomorrow, which is getting into the actual then issues, the abuse, the lies, the incidents at hand. We got a full panel here. So happy to have Christopher Melcher, attorney at law, as well as It's Kim, Robin Redbreast, Steph the Alternerd. So amazing to have all you guys here. Thank you guys for joining us.
Hey up, everyone.
Hey up, full house. So I want to go to, no offense, panelists, but we got the lovely Christopher Melcher here to give us the legal analysis, and I'm dying to hear his take because we heard his take on the first half. For those that missed maybe our replay, what did you think, again, of the first half, and then how do you think the second half compared as you watched it?
Well, Johnny got off to a rough start at the beginning of his testimony, and it's understandable because this is real life for him. He's not playing a character. It's awkward. He's talking about stuff that's very personal. But I do believe that his attorneys could have done a much better job preparing him for that moment. They would have had a whole script of questions that they could rehearse with him. And they started off with the softball question, like, why are you here today? And he gave a long, rambling kind of response. It was very difficult for him to kind of get the right choice of words. It was slow. I had to really speed it up to like 1.5 to watch it. And I felt there was a lost opportunity there. They could have been much more precise. I'm here to tell you about, I'm here because Amber lied about me. Something very small like that. Instead, he went on long. He was also kind of unsure where to look. Should he look at the questioner or should he address the jury? He kind of went back and forth initially and then just settled on looking at the questioner. Those things should all have been worked out ahead of time. And they also started in kind of chronological order, as lawyers like to do, but that's often not the right way to start a story. So they said, let me talk to you about your childhood and your abusive mom. Now, that's a rough place to start your story. And he did much better as he got into the testimony, and especially when he started talking about his career. And that was kind of a safer and more interesting thing, for a lot of us to hear about. So if it were me, I would have started with the softball questions, the easy stuff, talk to me about how you got into acting, some of your early roles. Open the guy up, let him get comfortable, let him establish a rhythm and rapport, and then go into the harder stuff. But over time, he really opened up and he did a great job, and it was nice to hear him express himself. Really sad to hear some of the things that he had to share, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think there could have been a better prepared answer, but it felt like he didn't do a preparation. I want to bring the rest of the panelists in since we got some other people who are watching and who are fans. Just going around sort of quick answers. I'll come to you for longer answers, but we'll go to you, Kim, and then Robin and Steph based on the squares. Do you feel like Johnny did prepare? Do you disagree with Christopher? Do you think there was prep? Or do you think this was, no, Johnny just finally talking for the first time? Kim, what were your thoughts? You're muted. Robin, you're muted.
Sorry. No, I think there's probably a bit of both, to be honest. I think he probably did do some prep work, but when he got up there, it just, emotion, you know what I mean? It just gets overwhelming, and I think it all just kind of came out. The way he was speaking, you could tell he was trying so hard to be eloquent and put together and explain things in a way that someone that he's never met would understand. And I think he did that relatively well for the most part. He does speak very slowly, but overall, I think he did fairly well.
Robin?
Yeah, I think that's just kind of the way he talks. I mean, we've heard audio from him talking, obviously not in script and not on a movie the same way. So I don't know how much of that can be helped, and I think just starting out, he was pretty nervous, but you know, he knows what he's talking about. So I think we said it the other day. If you don't lie, you don't have to remember everything. Or if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
That's true.
So.
Steph, your thoughts?
I would say it's a little bit of both. As Mr. Melcher will probably attest to, any good paid lawyer worth the weight in gold is going to try and prep their client before they take the stand. So I'm sure there was an immense amount of prep work that went into this, to be fair. The only thing is that we've got to take into account is that this is the first time Johnny Depp has actually spoken publicly about this in the first place. So there's a little bit of him rambling because it's the first time he's spoken about it in public. So, yeah, that's why I say there'd be a bit of both in this scenario here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I knew about it. Connected story, which we're going to get to, is the whole they brought up the earpiece, and I knew about that about Johnny. That Johnny was someone who had an earpiece in that would get lines in a way to sort of help him remember, get in the mood, or get music. I knew a producer who worked on one of his movies. I won't say where, but yeah, I wonder though, like. Maybe he can't remember it all. I don't know how actors do it. And so that sort of ties into like maybe he just couldn't remember all the notes that the lawyers were giving. He knew sort of some broad strokes. And that's sort of the vibe I got of him being himself, him just putting it all out there. And there were probably some lines or so that he was trying to ease in at his pace that the lawyers were wanting him to do. But it did feel like the way he speaks and everything about it just sort of meandered at times that if you're a fan of Johnny, you're going to love it. You're going to admire it. You're going to think he's being empathetic and like it, right? If you're indifferent on Johnny, I think it could get on their nerves. This is my only frustration looking at it, from as someone objectively. But overall, I thought, yeah, I mean, it hit me hard throughout, especially the beginning, Christopher. I do have to say there were moments there where I felt like it was tough, but I agree it could have been even better if he had prepared something and memorized a little bit of just like, why am I here? And get right to it. This woman lied and has destroyed my name. It would have been a lot more effective and would have been the sound bite that everyone would have used all over the news. And I don't know which sound bite they're going to take now because there were a lot, right? It was a little bit of a meandering all over the place. Christopher, back to you. Sort of other thoughts as things went. They established a lot here. Am I correct in assuming this is all setting the groundwork for the players and things that will come in later throughout the rest of the testimonies?
That's right. Today was all foundational. It's about him as a child being abused by his mom and his father basically witnessing that, and his dad's coping mechanism was basically to avoidance. And so they're bringing out that testimony to show that Johnny is now in a similar relationship with Amber, and he chose avoidance just like his dad did. And so I think that was important. It also helped us understand why he has a substance abuse problem. He talked about how his mom would self-medicate and he would take one for himself when his mom asked to get one of the so-called nerve pills when he was 11, and that he didn't take drugs to party, he took them to numb. And so it's understandable based on that really difficult childhood that he had, why he has a substance abuse problem. So that was important to get out there. He also said that Amber used the details that he provided about his substance abuse history against him to exaggerate the times that he had used drugs or alcohol during the relationship. So I think that was effective. He also explained the difference between Johnny and Johnny Depp. I thought that was interesting, yeah. Where he was saying that, look, I'm not this character you see on TV. I'm actually he actually said, I can't really get my words out there that easily. I could speak 100 words a minute if I'm the character, it requires that, but me, I can't. So it was interesting. He acknowledged that, and he probably maybe resisted the attempts of his counsel to prepare him, and maybe his counsel tried to treat it like a script or a role in a movie, and maybe he said, no, I want to come on, this is how I am. And I will tell you that he does not come across as an aggressive person at all. He even said at one point he had never hit anyone in his entire life. So I think he did a good job showing that he's a peaceful person, doesn't look like someone or act like someone who is cast as an abuser.
Yeah, so I mean, as you started up there, as we got the notes, and I want to go through, and today we're going to go through the sort of a summary of Johnny, our reactions. I may put together more pieces later tomorrow morning, and then I do want to make some time to go through the two other witnesses that spoke. We have some clips that I've compiled because I don't want to let them forget since we're all talking Johnny. But just let's focus on the headline today. And Johnny, of when he took it about 6 years ago, Miss Heard made some quite heinous and disturbing criminal accusations against me that were not based on any species of truth. Was how it started. My goal is the truth. It killed me that people I spoke to over the years, that people would think I was a fraud, that I lied to them. So I had to wait for my opportunity to address the charges, which were criminal charges, and they just weren't true. I felt the responsibility of clearing the record as the only way that I could get to the point where I could speak as really taken this full 6 years. It's been 6 years of trying times. There's a lot of good stuff in there. It's really powerful, but I agree. I wish it had been a little bit better organized to have that consensus, soundbite. But, the gist of it is there, and I feel for him. And to know he had to wait all this time to finally speak about it is unreal. Very strange. One day you're a Cinderella, and then 0.6 seconds later you're Quasimodo. I didn't deserve that, nor did my children, nor did the people who believed in me. Didn't want anyone to believe that I'd done them wrong or was a fraud. He repeated that so much. I pride myself in honesty and truth. It's the only thing I'm interested in. I'm obsessed with the truth. Today is my first opportunity to speak about this case. That was the takeaway, sort of gist of things I was jotting down from his opening remarks over the first few minutes that I thought were very effective. Could have been done better. Overall, I'll go to you, Steph. What was your biggest takeaway on what he shared? Because there's a lot we can go through, but I thought rather than just run it all down, what were some of the moments you guys each stood out for you?
What was the biggest takeaway? Oh my goodness, there's so much, isn't there? I suppose my kind of biggest takeaway was when he was talking about his illicit substance use and going through that. And, saying, look, I kind of pretty much turning around and saying the equivalent of I could drink these people under the table and still be fine. You know what I mean? Kind of countering Amber's allegations of he would absolutely go out of his mind on the illicit substances and go absolutely completely nuts. He's countering that. But the one thing that really stood out to me out of all of that bit was when he turned around and he was talking about coming off some opies. And I know a little bit of how that feels because of my condition. And at one point I had to be weaned off. And he said, look, it's hell. I ain't going back to that hell. It's freaking hell. So for me, that's my biggest takeaway in terms of his more responsible nature towards illicit substances now and what he's had to go through and the hell he's had to go through to get to this point. I can really sympathize with that a lot. So, yeah.
Robin, what about you?
Yeah, as far as outlining the foundation of his childhood, it pretty much fits with the consensus of, addiction and recovery, which is that the number one cause of addiction is childhood abuse and neglect. And then describing the process of seeing his friends on heroin and having addictions of opiates and losing friends to suicide, him not wanting to go back or experience that, and us hearing the horrors yesterday from the nurse about the detox process, stuff that we shouldn't be seeing because they were confidential. I think it shows that he seeks help. He's aware. He knows the consequences of his actions, unlike someone else that we know.
Yep. Kim, yours too. What are your real quick takeaway? And then I want to play a clip. But go ahead, Kim. Your biggest takeaway?
I think the biggest thing for me was I kept seeing this theme of him talking about his children and wanting to be different from his parents. And then that type of just the stark contrast of one thing I noticed right away was that he said that he felt that when his father left that it was cowardly originally, and that he got to a point where he didn't feel that way anymore because he understood it. But one of the things that we know that Amber has screamed at him in their fights whenever he's left the room is, you're a coward, and things like that. So it's I think he's right in the sense that she took what she knew about him and weaponized it. And so many of his motivations were specifically to not be his parents and to protect his children. And that's why it's all connected. And I thought that was a very, I think it was smart of them to talk about that, because it really does set a tone of who he is as a person.
Yeah, well said. I mean, as I'm going through it, they really did focus on. I mean, the biggest takeaways, especially in the beginning, as after he took his stand and sort of mentioned why he was here, he then shared about, how does it feel about the intimate details being shared, where he really focused on his children and the effect it had on them, which I got. I think that was a smart way to do it. I can't say I'm embarrassed because I'm doing the right thing, was the takeaway line that he said at one point that stuck with me as well, of just like, he knows what he has to do here. Then exactly, went to the upbringing. The verbal abuse was worse as you learn to deal with the physical. Like, really hit me as well when he said that line along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. But when he broke down sort of the way his mother treated the family, it really was just heart-wrenching to hear. And I think establishing a really important foundation. And then when they talked about the father and why did it was him struggling and why he took it, etc. He was not an abusive man. At the same time, my father's also to some degree at the mercy of Betty Sue, because if he argued with what she wanted done, that would just turn into another barrage of hatred towards him. It really, you see these parallels. And Christopher, those are good parallels to set in front of the jury, correct? Because they're like, well, yeah, it sounds like he's just being his father.
Yeah, I mean, I feel terribly for him, and that he's went through that, and then he's had to share all this openly. But he did say, though, that at some point during his life as an adult, he realized that you do have to confront your demons from the past, and so he is doing certainly that now. One of the takeaways that I thought was interesting when he was talking about the Pirates movie, and me and my son are watching that, going through that the last couple nights, and it's a great movie. But he said he had never seen it.
He did say that. He just laughed about it. Like,
I mean, I wish they would have asked the follow-up question. I know some actors just refuse to watch their own movies, but gee, how could you not watch that?
Yeah, a lot of actors don't. Nicolas Cage was another. I just watched his new movie, which is amazing, by the way, guys. But yeah, some actors just refuse to want to watch themselves. But I found that the way he sort of said it, yeah, I never saw it. It was very telling. But I want to go to one other thing, and I want to get everyone's thoughts on this one, because I think I have it pulled here. Apologies, it's a long stream to try and have ready. Here it is. He apologized for the
texts and in my emails, or sometimes just even in my writing. You take.
I
want to go back, actually. I want you to hear this whole part.
555.
Embellishments, and embellishments are great sort of ways that he would twist. So he became a huge hero, of course. The heat of the moment.
Hold on.
Apologize.
It is. There it is. It's
you take the subject and you
So we're getting there. Hold
try
on.
to express it in your own vernacular, and in that, for example, with the text messages that I apologize that everyone's had to experience. I am ashamed of some of the references made. I'm embarrassed that at the time, the heat of the moment, the heat of the pain that I was feeling, went to dark places. There is no, if you're writing, there is no set place that you have to stay in. You can travel, and sometimes pain has to be dealt with humor.
Now, this was interesting because
She is as full of as a Christmas goose. ...
we've got a lot of these texts and things we've gone through, and as we've remarked in these streams, a lot of us would frame these texts that we're getting from Johnny. They feel like their own like little mini brilliant geniuses. But it was interesting too, and I want to go to you, Christopher, because again, foundation. There were also 2 mentions of Monty Python today, and I know that they're setting the tone because they haven't really even said these texts out loud, but the Paul Bettany texts, which I'm sure are coming out during, I don't know if they're going to bring them up earlier or they're waiting for Amber to do it, but set some tone now. The Paul Bettany texts are ones that they referred to in the beginning as just really nasty stuff of, I want to bury her, the witch, etc. A lot of people have made this assumption that they're sort of doing similar Monty Python-esque humor in the when they were referencing those sort of disgusting moments. Christopher, do you think that was on purpose? Do you think they were trying to tell Johnny to sneak that in, to set this precedent now, to address those before it starts to really bite us in our ass later?
So that's one of the purposes of direct examination. When you have your witness on the stand, you want to take the wind out of the sails from the other side when they get him on cross. So if they know that there's going to be some adverse evidence like these text messages, it's good for him to explain that up front. He'll also have another chance to do that on cross. And if the cross of Johnny is as bad as it was of Isaac Baruch, he may score more points on cross than he did on direct. And he's certainly going to be warmed up and acclimated tomorrow when he's crossed. But it's good to get that out there. There's definitely could be some confusion in the juror's mind that if he's speaking aggressively about Amber in text messages, maybe that came out physically. So he may also probably want to dive into those texts a little bit more and explain that, what he's writing is what he's feeling, but it's not how he's acting.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone knows that. It's just like that's kind of crazy to assume that what you write is factual. I'm sure everyone in the jury has said something that they regret. It's as he said, you can travel further with writing. It's not reality always. It's an expression. And so I thought he handled that well. I thought it was a very clever, smart way to get ahead of it. There was a lot of that. They talked about explain the history of drug use, which obviously is a big deal. How he explained how Amber's version of his drug was a distortion, was a lie. He was off the drugs for 16 months during Australia, etc. Amber's friends would joke about his tolerance for drugs and alcohol and how impressed they were. And it's staring at Amber, who was really it was so weird watching the emotionless of Amber. I want to make sure we touch upon that too, because Christopher, she's there. Here's her face. That was pretty much the face. I could still it, and I feel like that's what she was the whole time. Do you think she was coached by her team to show no emotion? Because if she laughs or shows any affection towards the way even Johnny's being kind, can that almost bite her in the ass? What do you think the direction of her demeanor was that the team was trying to express to her?
Well, the definitely going to be telling Amber and Johnny, hey, you're under a microscope here. The jury's watching, just like we're looking for expressions. There were a couple times where I felt like Amber was going to cry and she was choking up. So, but I didn't see her break down, but it looked like she was getting close to that.
Would that have been helpful in a way?
Well, it's a little bit distracting. Again, if you don't like Amber, then you're going to think it's fake. If you do like her, then you're going to be sympathetic. So, it's a risk. I do think her look is a little hard, and maybe the ladies would know better than I would, but on their choice of makeup and hairstyle, I think, could have been presented in a little softer way.
Yeah, lady, anybody else have an opinion on how Amber was? Yeah, go ahead, Robin. I see you.
I do. 609. I got the timestamp right here. 609:26 is when he starts talking about her. And at that moment, she sits face forward to the camera. She's done this a couple times, but the entire time that he was talking, she sits front camera, disassociating just on that mark off camera lens, sitting there straight. She may have done her makeup today very flat, very plain, so as not to allow any kind of contouring or shadowing, to allow any kind of emotion on her face. As she's just, and I don't think that Elaine would have told her to do that. That's Amber. She's the one who's going to think like, movie, actress, and look at that point just off camera.
You said 60936?
Who needs
60936.
Here it
And
is.
it's just her in the same position for the whole time, every time the camera looks at her.
to be high or loaded all the time?
This isn't when he's being
In
nice.
fact, in Australia, from
He's talking about
before
us not being on drugs. I think you have the wrong. We might have mixed up the code. That's.
I mean, she was doing that earlier too.
I mean, she
but
gave that face the whole time, to be honest.
Yeah.
He did. And so that was when actually he started talking about reality, not giving her compliments like in the beginning. So when he's outlining basically how she love bombed him through that process, that's when she stays straight. And she stays like that for pretty much until the trial ended for the day.
Yeah, and so for those
starting
who don't
at
know,
609,
love
she
bomb is a
stayed.
definition for what narcissists tend to do. Like, we'll take the person they're after and just bomb them with love and affection and everything until they sort of woo them over and then switch over sort of their tactics. But yeah, it was interesting to watch her. Anybody else have Steph or Kim have an opinion on Amber's reactions? No.
Resting bitch face comes to mind. And
Resting bitch
just,
face.
you know, from us discussing Amber's look, just from like a makeup kind of perspective, it does look extremely severe with her hair pulled back and the angling of a contour. It just adds to the whole resting bitch face kind of look that she's kind of going for right now. If she did a little bit more of like an ethereal romantic blush that gave a little bit more colour into her face, and also as well like contoured her eyes a little bit more with again warmer colours, that would be more softer like feminine look than what you're looking at right now, which is again resting bitch face. There you
You
go.
need some Arnica cream.
Yeah, she needs some Amica cream.
Arnica cream solves resting bitch
Amica
face.
cream, Mr. Melcher. Get it right. It's Amica cream.
Amica cream, exactly.
Magic
for
Amica
resting.
cream.
Somebody make that ad for us. Amica cream for resting bitch face. Wow. Yes. Well done. Yikes. Kim, anything else you want to add?
I thought it was interesting as I was watching her. I felt like she was able to keep a stone face from about here up. But
Yeah.
her lower lip, at points, you could see it kind of like moving a bit. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's like she was stone faced, and then there were those couple moments that you could
Lip
tell
quivers,
emotionally it was
interesting.
hitting her. And
I
the
didn't
lip quiver.
see it. Yeah, I'm sad I missed that. But honestly, I would not be surprised. I mean, there's no way Amber's not breaking down in hysterics and tears tonight. I just don't buy it. I feel like that had to be extremely, extremely brutal because she must know the damage she's caused at some point deep inside, and it's got to break you at a certain point, I would think. And just to relive and see all the kindness and relive those memories, that is intense. As someone who's been through divorce and a lot of extreme things, like when you sort of block it off for a while, right? And then when I remember a specific moment, I went into a Chili's after my divorce, and I hadn't stepped in a Chili's in forever. That was some place that my family and I went a lot. And I walked into that Chili's, and they're all the fucking same. Every fucking Chili's is the same. And I felt like I was back there in that moment, right? Whether it was bad or good. And there just can be a moment, right, where you go back to a memory that you're trying to forget or move on from. And I almost broke down in the Chili's because I was trying, you know, I can't imagine reliving all that stuff that Johnny just spit out from his heart. That she's not going to be an emotional wreck today, whether she acknowledges what she did or not. Am I crazy in that? Do you guys think that she's going to have a tough time tonight grappling this? Or do you think she's just going to be like, here's what we're doing next? What do you think?
I think she's going to have a tough night. Do you see how quickly she went out that door today, not hanging out in the corner on the edge with her lawyers, smiling and looking all happy? Yeah. She's crying right now, actually.
Yeah, I don't wish it on anybody, but I'd kind of wish it on her. I do. I'm sorry. I don't like what she's done to him. I don't like how far she's taken this. All she had to do is just say it wasn't true, and we all would have moved on years ago. You know what I mean? Everybody would have done it. So I don't know. They both have pushed this, and seeing Johnny's testimony and things he's done, I understand why he's felt the need to push it at this point. And Christopher, I know you were hesitant as you're seeing all this play out. The PR of this is going to help Johnny more than anything else. Do you see it now?
Yeah, my thoughts are evolving about it. I think he wins in the court of opinion. He has won in the court of opinion. I don't know that he's going to win in the court of Virginia, because the whole case is based on his claim that she made false statements in the op-ed piece, and the op-ed piece is pretty vague. Doesn't say, he did something to me, date, time, place. It's not that specific. So they're going to have to do a very good job in closing argument tying all this together. And we'll see. Johnny really needs to sell it tomorrow and saying, and hopefully they'll confront him with this on direct, where it's easier, softer approach to saying, tell me what you found false about the op-ed piece. Could you point this out to me and explain it to me? And
do you think they're going to ask him that there tomorrow in the cross?
Ordinarily, you would. A defamation case.
I don't want to give them ideas necessarily, but okay, fine. Tell us what you would do.
Well, they would never do it on cross because they'd be giving him the floor. So what his attorney needs to do it on direct exam tomorrow, to saying, okay, I'm showing you the op-ed piece. Can you point to me what statements in here that you believe are false about you? And because that's the first element of a defamation case, that she made false statements of or concerning him. So he needs to identify those. He could leave it to his counsel, but I think it would be more effective for him to identify the statements and explain why they're false. And it's, again, since they're not specific factual statements, it's more about she presented herself in a false light, that she was a victim of something that never occurred. And in fact, anything that did occur was by her own hand. And so he needs to be able to articulate that so the jury understands what is false about this statement.
Interesting. Well said. And then just recapping the rest of Johnny's, they explained why does he write that way. And then his drug use, they talked about his tolerance, and he explained his addiction to Roxycontin, opiates, which they've set that tone early on. They then went into how he met Miss Heard, and he spoke very fondly of Miss Heard, the rum diary, even got very open and honest, admitting that he felt a kiss with her before he was even out of his marriage and she was with someone else. I thought that was very revealing that he went there, but again, showed that I just took that as he's being honest, which I thought was really interesting. But there was a moment Alexander wanted me to pick about, it started out with the little things, where I wasn't allowed to go to sleep until she wanted to go to sleep. Little things that were allowed to continue, that he sort of enabled her to do, which then blossomed and grew as he was sort of talking down the breakdown of the controlling parts of this relationship. They talked about their nicknames, Slim and Steve, and he used that as an opportunity to call out the age difference. I was the old craggly bogey, and she was the beautiful, stunning creature. They went into her parents, how they were complete opposites. Mom Paige was an angel, and Father David he called rascally, which is a fun Johnny Depp word. I want Johnny Depp's word of the day, is like one of those calendars that he curates, one of those things, because he clearly knows the language well. But yeah, an outrageous cartoon cowboy is how he identified David, who is ironically someone who wants to kill, right? Didn't he threaten to kill Johnny a few years back? He spent a lot of time with the family, and then I felt like he roasted the sister. Did you guys get that sense? He's like, yeah, when I met Whitney, I felt a lot less confidence. There was just an insecurity. I loved her. I called her sis, but I always thought she was missing out on something. It was almost like he was trying to turn her, because I know a lot of fans have said that Amber's the narcissistic one, and she has to live in her sister's shadow. But yeah, I felt that he was sort of calling her out. He then mentioned the fact that he did drugs with Whitney 2 to 3 times, setting up the fact that, yeah, well, if he's a drug user, they all are, because they were all doing it, which I totally believe that. And then, yeah, it started. We're getting to the place where we're starting to figure out the problems. So it did feel like they were ending at a decent point. To then tomorrow morning, we will get into the abuse allegations. So we will cover that in depth. I want to continue talking about Depp, but I want to play these clips. I got about 10 minutes of clips. If you can either wrap up or stick around, Christopher, and give us your thoughts. Do you want to watch these other witnesses, or do you need to go?
Yeah, I need to go, but yeah.
Give me your thoughts then, if that's what I'm checking. If you need to give me your final thoughts sort of on Johnny overall, what you expect to happen tomorrow.
There's one thing, and you may see this on the Rum Diary clip, was that when he was making this movie with her, and this is before they're dating, that the scene called for her to be nude, and that he intervened and said, look, you can actually do this scene because I guess there was a scene where she was shown in a red bra, and then the next scene would be throwing the bra. And he said, look, you could actually keep your top on and take another red bra and throw that into the crowd, which then through editing, the implication would be that you actually removed your top. And so he intervened to do that, which shows he's a gentleman.
Right.
And this is before, so I think that was also effective to see like who this guy really is. So I think he did a great job today. I look forward to seeing his testimony tomorrow. It might actually bleed into Thursday. It just depends on how much cross and then redirect that his attorney would get back with him.
Yeah, it's interesting that because they're gonna probably go through a lot of this stuff in the first half at least, and then cross will take a while on him, right? They probably have a lot they want to unload on him. No.
Yeah, I got to think it goes into Thursday because he still hasn't talked about her false allegations and the abuse that he suffered at her hand, and then also he has to discuss how this affected his career and income to support his big damages claim, and then he has to refute her claim against him that he did defamed her or whatever. So there's a lot to unpack there still. Then her lawyers go at him, and then Johnny's lawyer finishes with what's called redirect, and there could even be recross. So I don't think we're finishing tomorrow with him. We're going to see a lot more.
So smart they brought him in early, as you predicted, and then others were predicting, because now they can get a lot of this out of the way, because this will probably be the most effective jury for the jury, right? Is hearing him directly and then hearing her directly, right? At the end of the day,
Yep.
These witnesses and things will help, but it's really no one was in the room when it happened except for her and him. So it is a he said, she said to an extent. There's a lot of credibility issues, I feel like, that we've illuminated very clearly on the evidence against Heard. But yeah, overall, we'll have to have you back and see how Amber does to compare these notes. But yeah, I mean, is there a benefit to going first, or do you think Johnny has who has the better hand here in going first in these types of testimonies?
Well, if you got a strong case, always best to be first, because the jury's hearing all this stuff and it just, repetitious and sinking into their head. And, Amber's just got to sit there and take it. And, here we're reading into her facial expressions because she can't even talk. So he's definitely got the floor and he's got the command of it. And I don't think she takes a stand till next week. So, or maybe Friday. So it is an advantage. We'll see if she changes her hair and makeup, though.
Will they call her, or will she'll step up on her own time?
So Johnny's lawyer can call her as an adverse witness, and he can call her to the stand and basically put her directly on cross-examination and start nailing her.
Interesting. And you think they will do that?
So it's when I teach these trial advocacy classes, we debate this. A lot of lawyers think that they're really great at cross, but they're not. And so they could bring her in and call her to the stand as an adverse witness and try treating her as a hostile and start nailing her with these questions. But, Amber might do well with that and she might flip it on him. So it's a gamble. We'll see what they do. So is it better
to bring her on or cross her on her own time? Because I would imagine the defense is going to call Amber up for their own side too, right?
Yeah, if they do call her as a hostile witness, it has to be peppered, very simple questions that that she has to admit or that she's going to lie to. So it can't be like, tell me your story. It has to be, you did this and that was false. Yes, yes. And then she's now committed to, having lied previously or said something that's so ridiculous that her credibility is destroyed. And then you say, okay, fine, Amber's lawyer, you take it from here because she's devastated. But they have to be that precise about it. Otherwise, they're going to give her the floor, just like Isaac Baruch got the floor on cross.
But just so I'm clear, because that's interesting, because you can almost throw her off, right? Because then the narrative starts on the defense's side by asking the questions they want, which would make sense that they'd want to do that. But then can Amber's side on cross just take forever to start telling the story, or they're going to wait till it's their time?
Yeah, so when Johnny's done, let's say Thursday, they could say, my next witness is Amber. Haul her to the stand as a hostile witness and then pepper her with 10 or 15 questions that she has to admit that she lied in the past or makes her totally destroys her credibility. Just rapid fire. and just eviscerate her credibility. And then her lawyer then would get the floor and be able to ask Amber, whatever they want. And it's hard. They're not going to be able to, after that, say, why don't you tell me about your childhood? They're going to have to say, okay, you just admitted to lying. Why did you lie? Do you regret lying? Could you have handled that differently? They're going to have to rehabilitate immediately, which puts them on the defensive.
She's not going to admit it. She's going to play I don't recall. She's going to do some tactic, I'm sure. She can't admit it. So, but interesting. But it does seem like a smart legal move to get her off kilter, to get their narrative going. So they're off Friday, but I guess that would be Monday or Thursday, depending next week. So we'll be in Vegas. So we'll be there covering this aggressive witness, Amber. I hope that'll be interesting. Christopher, thank you for being here. Have you next time, anytime you want. Always love having you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we got a
Mr.
lot more to
Melcher.
go through though, with the panel, and we have some other calls. I see you, Alexandra, and we have a actual industry expert who's going to help me break down what we saw here with these two guests. In fact, I want to go there before we got a lot to go through, but I want to make sure I give you the recap because that's what I promise. I want to play the Sean Bett. This moment from Sean Bett, which was the security earlier today. We will come back and talk more, Johnny, on the live feed, but I want to make sure you guys have all the information of what happened today.
Mr. Bett, you communicate with Mr. Depp through texts, correct?
I do.
That's your primary way of communicating with him?
Well, not primary. I mean, if I happen to be in his presence, we'll communicate.
Sure, but in terms of written communications, texting is the way that you guys primarily communicate, right?
Correct.
That's the same thing the same way that you communicate primarily with his other employees or with his family as well, right?
Yes.
You have a practice of deleting all of your texts with him at the end of the day or week.
Smart
correct?
security guy.
That's correct.
So there wouldn't be texts from his time when he was in a relationship with Amber Heard that you have possession of, correct?
That's correct.
He's serious when he's like, "Yep, after every day, wipe." Wipe. Honestly, that's smart for his clients. It protects him, protects everybody. I mean, you might probably would regret having some wiped because it would back up the story, but probably cleaner to do it that way. But yeah, Kim, you had pointed out too of just how cheeky it was of him, like, well, no, not my primary, but yeah, it was one way.
I don't know why it just hit my funny bone the right way. I was laughing so hard when he said that. It was just ridiculous.
He just loved pushing back against Rottenborn, and he does it such a serious, just professional way that I enjoyed it too.
You've never seen Amber do something that you would call physically violent or an assault of Mr. Depp, correct?
Other than when I testified that she threw a water bottle or a plastic cup in his direction.
But that you wouldn't consider that physically violent or an assault of him, correct?
Well, in California, it's assault if you go to attempt to swing or throw something at somebody, even if you don't hit them.
Dropping some
Ba-boom,
California
mic
civil
drop.
statute.
Yeah, which is all good and well, but I saw this bit during work, and it's they go on afterwards and quote him, I think, in a previous deposition, and it kind of, I think, damaged him a little bit.
Yeah,
if you're going to go there, Andy.
Yeah, they went there, but I just liked the pushback. I was showing the pushback. And yes, then they go through and they sort of, after he's been pushed, they go through the previous depositions, etc. And the story slightly changed. It's clear that all these people are on Team Depp. I mean, we knew that going in. The one I really want to focus on was Kennan Wyatt here. So this was the sound technician who was there on a lot of set and set up, talks about the earpiece and more.
For hearsay.
And there was a lot. My God, Elaine was so angry at him. I meant to ask Christopher about this clip. Hey, Alexander, welcome. I was so frustrated by the way they were just aggressively harassing, as even Johnny's team called out, this guy who had the patience. Oh my God. So patient.
It's a joke, man. Amazing.
It was insane. So I've clipped sort of a lot because there was some interesting things that came out of this, but I also wanted to showcase the aggressive nature of Amber's team here. So they're already all sort of been bickering the entire time.
Foundation? How would he know that?
No, if you can ask how he knew it, you've only laid the foundation.
How did you know whether production of Pirates 5 was ever suspended?
I was on the film.
They're like, wait, you missed the. Elaine went back. I don't know how I went too far ahead. Elaine's out there like, well, objection, hearsay. How is he supposed to know if the film's shut down? It's like, dude, he's on the friggin' movie. He would know if the film shut down because he's part of the crew. Elaine has no concept of how Hollywood works or what's going on. You're going to sense a lot of it. It was so irritating to watch her just stretch and just try to find some, oh, well, they pay. Well, anyway, we'll get there.
I was working on the film, so.
Okay.
And the judge is like, yep, okay,
so
that
I
makes
know it was
sense.
suspended probably for 2 or 3 weeks.
And why was it suspended for 2 or 3 weeks?
Johnny had to go back to Los Angeles because his finger had been cut off. The tip of his finger had been cut off.
Do you have any understanding of how Mr. Depp's, or the top of Mr. Depp's finger was cut off?
All right.
No, I don't know.
They tried to object, but even the witness was like, no, I don't know. I can't tell you that. I wasn't there.
Mr. Wyatt, on those occasions, in addition to feeding Mr. Depp music, did you ever read lines to him?
Yes.
So they're talking about this earpiece that Johnny has. And if you didn't know, Johnny does act with an earpiece. Fans or people in the industry sort of knew that about him, that he needs help sometimes with memorizing. And so he explains it.
Why did you read lines to Mr. Depp?
Johnny typically likes to go into makeup in the morning and write his own dialogue and rewrite his dialogue. So sometimes there's not enough time to always to remember the lines and learn them. So I would remind him in his ear sometimes while music was playing at the same time.
And Mr. Wyatt, in your long experience working with Mr. Depp on films, how would you describe his level of preparedness on the set?
He's absolutely prepared. He knows what he wants the character to be. He collaborates with the director on what his ideas are, but he always comes very prepared.
Now this was a preemptive strike, and I noticed it, and I'm glad they did it because it's very clear that Team Amber is going to try to play that Disney was firing him for other reasons because of his alcohol. He's showing up late. He was trouble on set. That's what I felt like Johnny's team was setting the tone here of, well, that's bullshit. And so, or the earpiece is used because he can't even remember his lines. I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that potentially the defense was going to use against Johnny. And so it was nice to hear, what's his name? Sorry. Kennan sort of preemptively help nip that in the bud. And again, I found him pretty credible. I got to say, yes, they're friends of Johnny, but it didn't feel like he was lying or anything. Let's see here. And we have a guest is coming. We have a packed house. Welcome back, Anne, as well. Alexandra. We're going to get to you guys. Bear with me. I want to play this clip for a minute, and then I want to come back to get your thoughts. But I'm also waiting for a guest, Ashley, who can discuss the union issues that they're about to try and use against Johnny.
How would you describe to the jury Mr. Depp's sense of humor?
And again, I found him.
He likes like a British humor.
And you got to mute your YouTube.
Sometimes
just
a little
listen
dark,
to Zoom.
maybe. He likes plays on words, that sort of thing.
Monty Python?
Monty Python. There's a show in England called The Fast Show, which he used to love watching.
So setting up his humor, setting up the dark humor, setting up Monty Python, all very smart preemptive strikes.
The Fast Show. Wow.
You like
what
that, Steph?
A time warp that is. Yeah, it is an iconic British comedy show. Not as iconic as Monty Python, don't get me wrong, but yeah, very well known. Yeah.
Any alcohol or drugs did you see Mr. Depp take while on the car ride to the airport?
On the car ride, I don't recall anything being taken. Johnny, I know, had called Jack during the car ride to talk to him, to tell him we were on our way. And we were listening to the World Cup that was going on at the time. The plane had come from New York with Amber and Savannah already on it.
What, if anything, did you observe about Miss Heard's behavior on that Boston flight?
Well, she was giving Johnny the cold shoulder, being quiet, and seemed pouty.
What, if any, conversation did you have with Miss Heard on the flight?
At one point, I went up to her and said...
No, sorry to interrupt, but this is important. This is the flight to Boston that Amber alleged, and I have it right here, that he was pushing and kicked her and threw his boots at her, yelling at her, was passed out in the back, drunk, and so this is that moment that we're referring to that now this witness saw firsthand and is basically going to shatter.
Said something to the effect of, he cares about you, and all of a sudden she snapped and started yelling at me, "How dare you talk to me? Get away from me." She was abruptly loud. It was a quiet plane, all of a sudden it got very loud. Johnny had said something to her like, don't talk to my friend that way, and I just stayed in my seat and finished the rest of the flight.
And after you went back to your seat, to what extent, if any, were you able to see Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
I was able to see them very clearly.
What, if any, violence or physical altercation did you observe between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard once you'd gone back to your seat?
I've never seen Johnny be violent towards anybody.
Did you observe Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard hit, kick, or throw anything at each other on the plane?
No, I don't recall that at all.
Mr. Wyatt, was Mr. Depp consuming any alcohol on that flight?
Sure, yes.
Did he seem intoxicated?
Seem intoxicated? No, he seemed like Johnny. No, he seemed normal.
So, all right, so now we're in the cross-examination. Ashley, are you there? Does your audio work, Ashley?
Can you guys hear me?
There you go. Welcome to the show where you are live on YouTube. So Ashley actually sent a very nice email and had some, we had similar thoughts as we were watching this cross from Elaine against him here, where they were just, Elaine has no clue how Hollywood or pay structures or any of this works. And so Ashley, can you give us a little background just as we're about to play this, because you can offer your commentary as well. What do you do, Ashley?
So I work at Warner Brothers. I'm actually on the lot right now. I am a sound service person. I'm like the lowest on the totem pole in the Editors Guild. So I work at a digital mastering restoration facility. We're a big part of HBO Max. Yeah, so just here, I don't know, just something about hearing this union stuff, it really irked me.
Yeah, all right, what's so good? As you're a movie expert, you understand how these unions, the pays and sets and everything work. So as we watch this, you can chime in with me.
You were getting paid on each of these films?
Yes.
Okay.
I get paid through a payroll company from the production companies.
Okay, and these were all negotiated by Mr. Depp, correct?
No,
Or his
I'm
company?
paid by the union sets the rate for me.
Right, but you're aware that Mr. Depp has negotiated it and put you into his contract,
Lack
correct?
of foundation calls for speculation.
I'll allow that answer.
You're aware that Johnny. So basically, the accusation. Well, Johnny's requesting him on the project, which is different than Johnny's paying him, right, Ashley?
Right.
And Johnny's
I don't know
not setting
how...
these rates. If the union rates are set, that's Johnny's like, hey, I'd like this guy on the show, which okay, but then it's also the pay is based off of union wages, correct?
Correct. So I don't know exactly how often it changes for local 695, which is what I found that Kennan is under. I'm in the Editors Guild, so it's a little bit different. I know for me, the contracts change every 3 years for the wages. So that's, I'm sure you recall there was that possible strike recently.
Yes.
They were in negotiations. Yeah, like at the time they were in negotiations for our wages and everything. So, back in the 90s, early 2000s, I don't know what the rates were or how often they changed or anything like that. But I'm sure, it was similar with the progression either every year or every few years that the rates would change.
Okay, so she's trying to nail him on like, well, Johnny's paying you and Johnny's paying you better, blah, blah, blah. And he's just not having it because it's not true.
Sorry.
Right.
Yes.
You're aware.
Question again. Okay.
You're aware that Mr. Depp has put you into each of his contracts, including how much you get paid and all of your perks, right?
I see it here, but when I'm hired by a production company, I get paid by the production company at my union rate for the job that I'm doing.
Now you're going to hear it. Elaine's like treating him as an aggressive witness. I don't understand why. This guy's been calm, collected, never claimed to say anything that beyond his scope. And Elaine's about to just rip into him and try to school him on the ways of union Hollywood rates and sets and travel, etc.
That's not the rate I make when I'm working on a production.
Okay, all right, well, let's stay in this one just for a minute, and we'll take a look at a couple more, because you ended up with a lot higher rate pretty soon.
Well, you got to even higher. You got a raise at some point. My God, must have been because Johnny loves you that you got a raise.
Over 20 years,
Over 20 years,
got
right?
a raise.
Ashley, the union never gives you guys raises that are arbitrary and just happen automatically, right?
No, that's not a thing. I mean, and I'm still, fairly new to the union, but I know that that's not a thing. I work with plenty of guys who are much older than me, have been in the union for a long time, and the raises that we get aren't that much. It's like maybe $1 and change here and there, give or take, maybe a little bit less than that. Like I don't mean to give, I'm just gonna say it. I went from like 22 to 23
Got it.
in a year.
Right.
And like I said, I'm very low on the totem pole. As a sound engineer, he probably makes way more than I do. But back in the 90s, I'm sure they weren't making that much.
Right.
But you also had your airfare paid for, correct? For travel.
Yes.
You also were put up in the same hotel as Mr. Depp.
Oh my
if
God.
he was in a hotel, correct?
Not necessarily all the time.
Right. And if he was in
right.
a house, then you got a comparable hotel close by, right?
I got a place to stay wherever we were filming, yes.
And it was comparable.
Comparable to Johnny's? No.
It was
Yeah, you got the same hotel Johnny got, right? You got the penthouse suite and, that the number one on the call sheet, right? You got the same treatment as him. And I love that he's like, no.
It was a positive, it was a nice hotel, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a nice hotel. Yeah, they didn't put him in the ghetto. Like they
Right, and that's like really vague. You know what I mean? Like a nice hotel, okay, that could be like, the Marriott or La
Howard
Quinta,
Johnson
and not
could be a nice
necessarily
hotel.
a Motel 6.
Exactly. It didn't have cockroaches.
I'm sure
so
they're
you
not
didn't have to
going to
do
put
it.
them, I'm sure they're not going to put them at like the Ritz or, something extra fancy, but they're going to put them in like something nice and not crappy. You know what I mean? So like, I don't understand. It just came across like she's trying to like blow all these so-called perks to, out of proportion, and they're not perks. It's normal travel expenses for the production, and he's not the only one getting these things. All the production crew members have to travel.
Yeah, it's like, wait, hold on, Ashley, I'm confused. When you get booked on a show that's going to Asia, you don't have to pay for the flight and hotel yourself?
Right? It's like,
I'm sure
that's
your rate. You can afford
job.
to stay at a hotel, you just cover it. We're going to pay you the shitty union wage, but you have to get yourself there. You have to put yourself up. You'll have to travel with us to every location that we move to. You'll just cover all that, right? Yeah, people would take jobs then in Hollywood if that was the case, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. No. So, I would not even be in this industry if that was the case.
No, it's it's insane.
It's just...
Yeah, it's like for her to imply that
you
crew...
do have to pay for yourself. So yeah, the only times you do have to pay for yourself is if it's like an indie, non-union type of thing.
Right.
There might not be as much compensation for that, and it's not something that would show up on your pay stub that there was travel expenses, or like I've been a PA on stuff, American Idol, what have you, and we had to mark our mileage and gas and everything, so we got compensated for that. But that's still
any
different.
job I've ever
we
had.
got compensated for it.
Yeah, any job I've had, if they expect me to travel and go to a location that I don't live in, of course they pay for it. Of course they pay for a room and board when they are taking their employee to work in a new location that they don't live in. That's it, and unless it's a optional trip or something, like that's your job, and that's what Hollywood does. And this weird twisting that this desperation is, I'll call it what it is. It's desperation of Elaine trying to be like, yeah, but you got fancy hotel. It was just like when she called what was the Amber's assistant, when they were like, yeah, well, yeah, you were by the pool, right? You were getting paid for. She's like, no, this was my day off. I wasn't getting overtime. Well, yeah, but you got some food ordered for yourself. I don't eat. Well, I guess my son bought something. Yeah, but that was on Amber's tab, right? No, it was on Johnny's tab. It was just like they've constantly been trying to like squirm this into these people are getting these perks, and it's complete bullshit, guys. Don't listen.
Yeah,
They said
production.
Go, sorry.
They said something about that. Oh,
Ashley,
sorry.
go ahead.
They said something about that too to the security guard yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Something about or at least maybe I saw it in the comments. He had mentioned that he was, reading a book, and somebody else commented being like, "Well, why is he reading a book? He should be working." Blah blah. And it's like security guards have breaks. They're not on 24/7. They have other staff members to relieve them. So yeah, he's allowed to, and especially if they're traveling. I used to work with some people who were security guards for talent, and they're on the travel buses, and they're doing all that stuff, and it's hard. So they do have time off where they can read books or, take naps or, eat like a normal human being. So I don't understand why
No.
people's perspective of that is skewed, you know?
Those are perks, Ashley, to Elaine. Oh, here we go.
We usually stayed at nice hotels.
Okay.
But so he did cave. Yes, we stayed at nice hotels. They didn't put him in a Roach motel. Okay. Well, I guess Elaine expected them to be put in Roach motels.
Pirates of the Caribbean, July 2014. This would be for 5, right?
Your Honor, lack of foundation. These are contracts to which Mr. Wyatt was not a party.
Good call from.
Your Honor, it's not offered to prove the truth of the contract. It's,
And what is it offered for?
all right, well, let me ask it this way.
Okay.
For Pirates 5, were you were in, what was your hotel accommodations?
Who cares? Really? This is Amber's defense? What were your hotel accommodations during Pirates 5? Oh my God!
I was staying in a condominium that the rest of the crew was staying in.
Okay, and how much were you getting paid on Pirates 5?
Whatever the union minimum was for my job.
Do you have any idea what it was?
No, I don't recall.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up.
And were you aware that your compensation and benefits were in Mr. Depp's Pirates contract?
No, I did not.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
let's go to that. You said there was a 2 to 3 week delay. In fact, it was closer to 5 to 6 weeks, wasn't it?
I don't recall what it was.
It's pretty
I flew-
significant when the entire crew has to stop for that period of time. isn't it?
Objection to Ms. Redehoff's testimony?
All right, I'll sustain
Yeah,
that.
Elaine's like just starting to speechify, which Ben calls. But Ashley, as someone else in production, the idea that they couldn't have filmed other things when that delay happened is asinine. Sure, it was a hit, probably screwed up scheduling, but when shows shut down, they go shoot other things. They figure out B-roll. They go do second unit, or they'll do reshoots or something. They'll figure out stuff to do while the crew is there and not be a complete loss. Correct?
Yeah. To my understanding, that's usually how it works. I haven't worked on a feature before. I've mostly done television, and then now I'm in post-production. But yeah, I mean, there's separate schedules. There's different crews. So there could be one crew who's, doing the main shoot for the day, and then there's a secondary crew who's either at a different location shooting B-roll or whatever. So they could have, during this time that he wasn't on set, they could have gone off and done other things to make up for the time. It's not like COVID was happening to where like everything had to shut completely down.
No, this was ages ago.
Objection, ask the question.
It's pretty significant, isn't it, when there's a delay?
It's significant. I don't think the film completely shut down for all of that. They continued to shoot what they could.
How many of the crew members were impacted by Johnny not being able to be there?
How the fuck
after
would he
cut
know
off-
that?
After the finger was
I know,
cut
it's not like he's friends
Well,
with
there
every
was-
person on set.
The crew, some of the crew, I'm sure, still kept working and filming other scenes without Johnny's character in it.
Do you know how many were impacted?
No, I don't.
Do you know how
Then why
much
ask?
Disney was impacted?
I don't.
Okay.
I feel like if
So
this was
now-
something that they
I
were
do.
asking anybody, like I feel like if this was reversed, that she would be screaming hearsay right now
Correct.
with these questions. It's just ridiculous.
And
It's so stupid.
he never claimed that he knew any of this shit. You know what I mean? He answered the questions, and it was what it was.
Back, he collaborated with Sean Bailey, right?
Yes.
And they
So
were
Sean
talking
Bailey
about
works
how
for
they were
Disney. They're trying to establish that Sean and Johnny aren't good and it's not because of Amber.
Going to get together on something, right?
Yes.
This part's amazing, guys. Watch this clip. So you got to listen closely.
Did Johnny do anything with Sean Bailey for the rest of 2015?
I don't know about that year, but I know that they talked about collaborating and doing something. Sean and Johnny had worked out. Johnny working at.
Mr. Wyatt, if you can just answer my
Your
question.
Honor, may the witness please?
no.
She asked the question.
I
He
asked,
should be
did
able.
he collaborate in 2015?
Your Honor, may he be allowed to
Yes,
please
let
finish
him, let him
his
finish the
answer?
question, answer. Sorry, go ahead.
Johnny and Sean put together Johnny dressing up as Captain Jack and addressing the crowd at the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to strike and ask that to be stricken. That is not responsive to my question.
Your Honor,
That's not responsive to the
responsive.
question.
It is,
Hold
though.
on. Wait.
she asked him the question. Should she?
That's not the question she asked him. You want to ask your question again?
That's not the question. Well, let's go do the instant replay, shall we, guys? This was the question that was asked.
He collaborated with Sean Bailey, right?
Yes.
And they were talking about how they were going to get together on something, right?
Yes.
Did Johnny do anything with Sean Bailey for the rest of 2015?
Did Johnny do anything with Sean Bailey in the rest of 2015? He answered your damn question, Elaine. Oh my God, you are just a lying, awful person.
Did Mr.
And that's
Bailey-
absolutely true as well.
Yeah, and so
Like-
anyway, she pushes. She comes back
Yeah.
and she asks it again. Now she asks it slightly different.
collaborate on any project
On any
with Mr.
projects this time, which she didn't say the first time.
Depp in 2015 after Pirates 5?
The one I just said, the project that was a promotional project for
Was it a
Pirates of
film?
the Caribbean. Was it filmed?
Yeah.
I think it was videotaped or filmed, yes.
Was it a feature film that?
Oh, now she just keeps adding. Was it a film? Was it a feature film? Was it a Academy Award-winning feature film? Oh my God, Elaine, you didn't ask that specifically, did you? You said, did they do something? Is what you said, Elaine. You liar.
Wasn't a
Made money
feature
on it?
film.
No. All right. Let's go to 2016.
All right.
Did Sean Bailey collaborate on
I
any
don't
film
know.
project with Mr. Depp?
I don't know.
Let's go to 2017.
I don't
Did
know.
Mr. Bailey
like, why
collaborate
are you
with Mr.
asking me
Depp
these
on
questions?
any film project?
I don't know the timing of the other things. No, I don't know if he did or not.
Now, you have no personal knowledge of whether Mr. Depp ever physically abused Vanessa Paradis, correct?
None that I ever saw.
He literally was asked, have you ever seen violence? Because he spent a lot of time with them. He said no. That's all he said.
But you have no.
What
no
a jump in
knowledge
question, too.
Well, I mean, I edited this.
What I mean?
It's true. It's a
Oh,
trim.
oh,
Okay,
I was
yeah,
about to
you're
say, I
good.
was like, man, she went from the film to this.
No, it is a highlight. I skipped. I
It kind
trimmed
of
some
felt
fat.
like that, though, in all
I
fairness.
didn't feel it, but
Right.
yeah. Out of nowhere, she's aggressively trying to get him. Like, well, you don't know if he was violent to Vanessa, do you?
You don't know, do you?
None that I saw.
Right.
Correct.
Right. You don't know what went on in their marriage and their relationship
No.
when you weren't there, correct?
Not when I was there, no.
Okay. And they split up, right?
Yes.
Do you know why they split up?
No, I do not.
All right. You don't know if Mr. Depp yelled or raised his voice at Vanessa Paradis on a daily basis when you weren't around, do you?
Not when I wasn't around, I don't
All
know.
right. And then you were asked at the very end by Mr. Chu whether you had ever heard of any woman accusing Mr. Depp of violence, and you said you'd never heard of anyone accusing Mr. Depp of violence. Do you recall
Correct.
that? Have you ever heard of Greg Brooks?
I don't know.
He's a
no.
manager on a set from City of Lies who's
Okay.
filed a lawsuit against Mr. Depp for punching
Your
him.
Honor, lack of foundation and
That's fair
object
game, Your
to
Honor.
Ms. Bredehoff's speechifying.
Her speechifying is what it was.
I'll allow it. He's good.
I don't know what happened.
Have you ever heard of
I've
that?
never seen him be violent to anybody.
But you testified you'd never heard of that. So had you ever heard
Oh my God.
of Greg Brooks accusing Mr. Depp of punching him on the set of City of Lies?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it. I don't know any basis of it, though.
So it's not true that you've never heard of anyone accusing Mr.
Oh,
Depp of
she got
violence,
him.
is it?
Throw out the testimony, guys, because he said heard or seen. I don't even know what he said, but my God.
I suppose not.
Okay. And you don't know whether Mr. Depp committed any domestic abuse or violence on
He never said he did. He just said, I never saw it.
any of the women in his relationships, do you?
I never witnessed it.
Right. You don't have personal knowledge, though, do you?
Only what I've witnessed, and I've never witnessed it.
Right.
No one claimed he did, Elaine.
You don't know what went on behind closed doors with
do
any
not.
of them.
Yeah, Elaine, neither do you, for the record. You're just listening to Amber.
Wasn't Mr.
I'm getting
Depp?
major like Mariah Carey vibes of her being like, I don't know her, in the sense of it being like
don't know
I've
her.
met them, but I don't know
don't
them.
know
So
her.
she might be saying like, yeah, I've heard that, but I don't know that. Like I feel like that's the same vibe.
It is.
Saying pretty horrible things to Ms. Heard?
I don't recall that.
Like, get f***ed on set, get f***ed with f***ing James f***ing Franco? Did you hear that?
No, I don't recall.
Did you hear him say it? At
She just wants to say this stuff. Get effed on set by
yeah, he
James
enjoyed
effing
it.
Franco.
least you f***ing liked
He
it?
enjoyed it way
You
too much.
effing liked it?
No,
Did you hear him say, I bet you slipped a tongue in there and you liked it?
no.
Did you hear him say, make references to Amber's pussy and asking her if her pussy was wet?
Your Honor, lack of foundation,
No.
harassment.
Did you hear any of that?
Oh, we'll get. She's like, oh, this is unreal.
No, not that.
I'll overrule the objection. It's fine.
Thank you. Now,
How is that
you
not
shared
hearsay?
an oxygen tank with Mr. Depp on that Boston plane, didn't you?
No.
No. No idea what you're talking about, woman.
You don't recall Mr. Depp insisting that the flight attendant give him an oxygen tank and the two of you used it?
No.
Okay. Do you recall
Oh, wait, so Elaine, maybe you don't know everything. What an interesting. Maybe what you're hearing isn't true.
Mr. Depp drinking champagne on the plane?
I don't know what he was drinking. I'm sure I was having wine. He could have been having champagne.
Do you remember him drinking a couple bottles of champagne?
I don't know how much.
And
Why is she so aggressive to him?
your testimony that Mr. Depp didn't kick Amber?
I didn't see anything like that.
Okay. Did you see
She's
Mr.
mad
Depp
because he made her look dumb.
I think so.
go to the
So
back
she's just
of the
like
plane
digging in
and
deeper.
Digging deep.
pass out and moan loudly?
Did you see him go to the back of the plane, pass out, and moan loudly?
Moan.
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that either?
No.
Okay. You don't recall if he was passed out or not?
No.
When you say you don't recall, as you're sitting here today under oath, you honestly can't remember if Mr. Depp was passed out when
mean,
you
there was-
left the plane?
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
All right. I'll allow it this one time. Go ahead. You can answer, sir.
There was lots of plane flights. I mean, the only reason I remember this one was because Amber yelled at me on that flight.
Do you remember my question?
I don't recall.
All right,
I mean,
so-
I could have gotten off the plane and just left. I don't know.
And Mr. Depp could have kicked Amber on that plane, right?
Your Honor,
Or
asked
could
and
haves now.
answered.
Not that I saw.
Not that I saw.
And he could have passed out.
Not that I recall.
So he
Mr.
held his
Beck,
own. But my God, that was a very contentious back and forth. And Elaine's caught lying because she wants to try and call his credibility into question. But the reality is, Elaine was caught being not a nice person either. All right, well, we got so much to get through. Ashley, thank you so much for going there. I'm just trimming this portion of the show so you guys can get the full recap. But you're going to want to stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, live viewers, because I want to hear from Ann, I want to hear from Alexandra, and the rest of my panel as we break down more of what happened here. But that is your basic summary of today, day 5. We will break down more of Johnny's testimony, and he'll be back tomorrow. So stay tuned. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, hit the bell for all alerts, smash that like button, and thank you guys so much. And make sure you support It's Kim and Steph the Alter Nerd, and we'll get to Ann and everybody else in a minute. But all my amazing panelists, thank you so much. And Christopher Melcher, who was here earlier, thank you guys so much. If you're watching live, we are not done. We aren't done. We got so much more to go through. I'm just trimming this to keep these digestible because this court's long and you guys don't want to sit through it all like we have.